Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello guys, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to your weekly dose of the What Fulfills You podcast. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I'm your host. And for today's solo episode, I wanted to dive into the topic of filling your own cup. And this is definitely especially going out to my ladies out there who have been feeling in maybe a rut of some sorts, or you feel just a little stuck in your phase of life. And maybe it's nothing major, but you feel a little bit of it. And I am going to be, of course, transparent. I have that feeling every now and then as well. I remember that last year, I very much had to kind of reconstruct my life in a way that I could refill my cup. I talked about this with my psychologist. I call him my psych, but he's a therapist. But I don't really consider him therapy. I consider him almost more like a psychologist coach because he actually comes from a sports psychologist background. But anyways, I was telling him at that time, over a year ago, I was like, I have been feeling not 100% myself. There feels like a little bit of emptiness, whatever. And I started then getting back into tennis. As some of you guys know, I am a former competitive tennis player. I played for about 10 years competitively in tournaments and whatnot. And, since college, I just really haven't, throughout college, really, I didn't quite touch my racket that much. When I was living in Southern California, touched it maybe once or twice a year. And so it was only way years later, last year, I finally started playing regularly again. And that's like the first time since I was 17 or 18, right? Which is crazy. So I noticed a big difference in my life when I started bringing back different hobbies. I did feel this when I came back to coaching figure skating, another sport of mine. And just once I made it more of a, just something regular in my life again, like the things that I enjoy doing. And I noticed that it made a difference in how I felt as an individual. And I bring this up as well because I think of my girlfriend who is traveling right now in Europe. And I think parts of her trip is actually solo, but she was just in Mallorca, Spain, by herself. And she rented a car, she drove around, she went to different beaches, went through different caves, all of it, went on different tours. And she was sending me her content that she took. And I was like, girl, you look amazing. You look just joyful. You look curious. It looks like a very intentional trip. And, for her, she was somewhat recently unemployed. And I think that sparked some transition ideas. And I think in this process, she is once again looking to fill her own cup and figure out what she wants to do. And she has all these different interests, things of which she's expressed to me, small things like dancing and, making fun videos and sharing her travel content. She wants to be able to do more of it, but doesn't quite know the format yet, right? And so when I shared with her, I love that she's creating this content and filming along the way, she was really glad to hear that. And that's part of why I was inspired to talk about just filling your own cup on this episode, because I noticed so many people, especially when you get comfortable with one routine already, which is maybe you're doing something that's not very filling your cup. It could be, I don't know, just leisure activities that just aren't as great for you in the long run. Okay, hint, maybe it's a little bit of smoking or just casually drinking way too much, things like that. It can really affect your motivation and also your desire to just find something that is actually worthwhile your time. I think of even pursuing music, like taking piano lessons, taking guitar lessons, or going to a pottery class. things like that. Oh my gosh, you guys. I mean, again, it really just comes down to your personal preference, but all of these things are so vital to our overall well-being. And I don't know how much we're fully aware of that, you know? Today's Monday, Memorial Day in the US. I always preface that because some of you guys are not here in the US, and so I have to like add clarification. But, you know, I worked today, kind of like half of the day. I did like a couple hours of deep workflow. But ultimately, I think the reason why I enjoy it and I feel stimulation from just recording even this episode and sharing these thoughts with you guys is because in the process, on a day-to-day basis, I'm constantly finding different things to fill my own cup as Emily. What makes me feel happy, what makes me feel really myself. The small things too. I love house music. Most of you guys probably have heard me say that a bunch of times now. So when I play really good house music on my speakers or I'm listening to it on a walk, it just lights me up. That is one form of filling my own cup. Or when I'm making coffee or breakfast here in my kitchen, I love to play bossa nova or French jazz music. It's just my vibe. And I kind of dance to it. And, you know, I'm smiling along the way and thinking about, you know, oh, what if I could, you know, live in my Parisian apartment in Paris one day? Like, that would be awesome, you know? And you'll see how it ends up being tiny compounding effects that really impact your overall well-being and your overall life. I remember talking to a listener who's hopefully and probably listening to this episode. Shout out to you. You know who you are. She mentioned that I think kind of in parallel to my whole coming back to tennis thing, I believe that she came back to, I forget what it was exactly, but also a sport slash hobby or like physical hobby type of thing. She went back to it. I believe she goes 2 or 3 times a week. And I believe she goes with a friend as well. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. And I asked her, how does it make her feel? Like, does she notice a difference? And she does, you know? And to me, it also ties into career and figuring out what we potentially want to do with our career. And, you know, I always want to preface to you guys, while not everyone needs to be career focused and whatnot, I do think listening and learning from other women who are 20 to 25 years older than me, something I've learned from a lot of them, no matter if they, stopped working when they had kids back in the day, or if they continued to actually have an established career, majority of them always told me, and this is probably why I was very cognizant of this into my 20s, majority of them told me to never let that part of me go in regards to, number one, doing something I enjoy, and number two, to maintain that even if and when I become a mom and I keep going into my life, right? You know, they've emphasized many times, and these are even women that, to be fully transparent with you guys, women that were and are married to partners that, you know, like to the point that they didn't need to work. 'Cause some of the reasons too were around how being in the workforce, or rather, even if you're an entrepreneur, like having that continues your personal development to a whole different level, compared to someone that kind of forgoes that and then picks up lighter hobbies. And that is, once again, nothing wrong with, let's just say, being a stay-at-home mom, but in most cases, what they've shared from learning, okay, these are people that are 20 some years older than me, they've shared just how important it is, kind of the theme of filling your own cup. And sometimes at that age, like that does look like a career of some sorts. But if that fills your cup, if that is part of what makes you feel your best, you shouldn't forego that. you know? And I think if most of you guys are listening and in your 20s, right, it is a great time and a great opportunity to discover what different career avenues that could be, because I notice a lot of people do get stuck on, well, I don't quite love what I actually do. In my opinion, I think the biggest insight I can share is the sooner you narrow it down and go through the trial and error process, the sooner you can actually uncover, oh, perhaps there is something, there is light at the tunnel, there is something that I enjoy doing and I can actually make money off of, you know? And so I share that with you guys because there's a lot of different pieces that lead up to that, lead up to us figuring out what we want to do for a living, and leads up to our own personal growth and fulfillment. And, you know, I think it's also something to be said about how as we continue to expose ourselves in environments that kind of almost force a level of critical thinking, right, outside of the comfort zone, it continues to push forward our personal growth. And in my opinion, I think that is also part of what's needed when you are looking to show up as the best mom and the best partner and the best kind of friend, you know? People can tell when you're still stuck in old ways, and especially if people are continuing to grow and you're showing up consistently in an old behavior and you haven't outgrown that yet, over time, you know, this is actually really mean to say, but a friend of mine, her mom told me this. She once literally said to me, you know, if you don't keep up and do something with your own life, whatever that looks like, okay, not being specific, but whatever that looks like, filling your own cup, being your own person, if you don't continue that and maintain that part of your identity as an individual, one day another woman will be more interesting than you. Maybe it's even the secretary, you know? And like I said, that's kind of shitty to acknowledge and talk about. And not to say that I have much of an opinion on that, but rather I definitely, you know, this is a woman that has been married for over 20, 30 years. And, you know, her husband is also extremely successful. And she's been doing her own thing in that process as well. And so I definitely took note, and that was told to me like a couple years back. And I think, you know, that's one thing I love to share with you guys is finding different avenues to fill your own individual cup. And solo travel as well, I believe, plays a big role in that. It helps with self-confidence. It helps with recognizing that you are capable of being physically on your own, and that you can also emotionally rely on yourself and emotionally regulate. A lot of times we get into relationships or situations where, because of that lack of individual separation and experience, such as solo travel or something of that nature, we tend to then just by default always be attached to something or someone. And at times that can be really unhealthy, you know? And so whatever that looks like to you, in whatever form that you can first step out of your comfort zone and do something that fills your cup. And I would always phrase it to me, what would fill Emily's cup, right? What can I do every day, every week to fill my own cup? For me personally, that looks like playing tennis, being on the ice, and skating, TBH, working and recording podcasts and creating content and sharing that online and editing and photography. That fills my cup. I love taking walks in Central Park, going to bookstores in New York. I love, you know, exploring the idea of going to a pottery class soon. I love going to Pilates. Like, that fills my cup. and that doesn't require other people to do it with me. So I'll leave you guys with that. I encourage you to self-reflect today and think about, number one, are you even doing things right now that actually fills your cup? Number two, okay, whether you are or not, what can you do? If you're not right now, what can you do? What is one thing you can add into your life tomorrow? And if you already have been doing a few things, okay, what are more things that you could be adding, especially if you noticed a sense of uh, a little bit of stagnancy or feeling like a little bit in a rut, right? How can you go back to fill yourself up so that you feel more like yourself? And as a result, when you feel more like yourself, you'll show up with a better energy. You'll show up as a better friend, as a better sibling, as a better partner. And thinking long term, you'll show up as a better parent if that ends up being your goal or your outcome. So I hope this episode was thought-provoking and encouraging. And as always, I love your feedback. So please be sure to share with me via DMs on Instagram at What Fulfills You or my personal one at Emily E. Duong. And let me know your thoughts on this episode. And if you loved it, please be sure to share with a friend and also post on your Insta story and make sure to tag the Instagrams so we can reshare. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode. I will chat with you all in a few days.